Your screen is live. One SQL slip and you freeze. I have been there. Here is the good news. The questions that trip people up are not exotic. They are the same handful of basics over and over. In this lesson, we lock those down so that moment never happens to you again. Think of an interview like a video game with levels. You cannot skip to the boss fight. Filtering and retrieval questions are level 1, and if you stumble there, the interviewer never even gets to ask you about joins or window functions. So here is the trick. Mastering basics is not boring prep. It is literally what unlocks the rest of the conversation. In short, nail the fundamentals and everything harder becomes reachable. Think of where like a bouncer at a club door. Only rows that meet the condition get in. Now notice what happens when you mix AND and OR without parentheses. SQL quietly applies AND first, and your OR can grab rows you never intended. So here is the trick. Whenever you combine AND and OR, wrap your intent in parentheses so there is zero ambiguity. In short, precedence bugs are invisible until you test them. So make your grouping explicit. Here is a classic trick question. Someone writes where email equals NULL expecting to find missing emails, and the query returns nothing every single time. That is because NULL is not a value, it means unknown, and you cannot compare unknown to anything with equals, not even to itself. The trick is to use is NULL instead of equals NULL. That is the only correct way to check. In short, NULL breaks equals, so always reach for is NULL is not NULL. Imagine a guest list with repeated names. Distinct just crosses out the duplicate, so each name shows once. Grub by is different. It bundles rows together so you can count them, sum them, or average them per bucket. A lot of candidates reach for distinct when what the interviewer actually wants is a count per department, which needs grub by. In short, distinct dedups, grub by aggregates, and mixing them up is a common stumble. Think of a leaderboard. You sort everyone from highest score to lowest. Then you point at a spot and count down. That is exactly what this pattern does. Sort with order by descending. Skip past the top scorers with offset. Then limit to grab just one row. Notice the offset is 2 to land on third place, since we skipped the first two. In short, this order offset limit combo is worth memorizing cold. Here is a pair that trips up even experienced people. Where and having both sound like filters, but they run at different times. Where checks each raw row before any grouping happens, so it cannot see an aggregate like a count or a sum yet. Having runs after the groups are built, so that is where you filter on things like count of orders greater than 5. In short, where guards the door before grouping, having guards it after. Picture a bouncer checking a guest list one name at a time versus just holding the list and glancing down it. The second way is faster and less error prone. That is IN versus a chain of OR conditions. Same result. One clean line instead of 3 fragile ones. My honest opinion, IN is underrated. People default to OR out of habit when IN is shorter every single time. In short, whenever you catch yourself chaining OR, reach for IN instead. I will admit a mistake I made early on. I once filtered a report with equals NULL and quietly lost a whole set of records and did not notice until someone asked why the numbers looked off. That is the pattern here. These mistakes do not throw an error. They just silently return the wrong rows, which is worse than a crash. Watch for NULL comparisons, where and having mix-ups, and unparenthesized logic. Those three cover most of what fails candidates. In short, it is rarely that your logic is wrong. It is these mistakes do not throw an error. So here is the trick. Before you touch the keyboard in any SQL interview, run this checklist in your head. Are you using is NULL correctly? Did you pick distinct or group by on purpose? Are your AND and OR wrapped in parentheses? And do you know whether you need where or having? Get comfortable with these 4 things, and most basic SQL interview questions stop feeling scary. That blank screen moment from the start of this video, this checklist is what kills it for good.